Hi everyone, I'm here to do a book review. No Walls and the Recurring Dream by Ani Difranco. It's a memoir. And I was really conflicted about doing this book review that I should have done weeks and weeks ago after I decided that I should do the book review. Because here's the thing. Ani Difranco has been a part of my life for, I think, more than half my life. Introduced to me very early on in my life by my friends from school we would go to the Ani shows. Oh, I have so many memories and stories I could tell you. I mean, I should make a second video just about some of the excitement, the things that would happen on an Ani Difranco show. And you know what? Going to an Ani Difranco concert, show, whatever you want to call it, is more like a piece of theater than anything else. I mean, it is something else. And I can't wait to get into that a little bit more. But my conflict with doing this review was how much should the name, dates, places of a person who is someone who's a hero to you should you know? Because Ani isn't. Let's compare her to another artist. I'm not going to say the artist's name, but this artist has meet and greets, is very open with their life, what's going on with their family, what's going on with their friends, and talks about how the song means, where they're at. Well, Ani is pretty to the point when it comes to her songs. Like when she wants to say something, if she wants to talk about the ERA, or she'll write it in a song called Amendment. If she wants to talk about the horrible, disaster with the oil, I think it was the Deepwater Horizon off New Orleans. I think that was the right one. Am I right? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. She'll write a song like Jay, like can't sit on my porch and smoke a J, but people on TV are selling drugs, a bunch of pushers, that whether or not I buy will end up in my water supply. So she's she's very lyrical, she's very metaphorical, but she's to the point. It's like when in the song Amendment, it's like we need this and this and this, and it rhymes and it's incredible, and the guitar work is incredible. But so how much should we know about a hero, about a person so important to me like Ani Difranco was? And I'm so glad this memoir came out. And I asked a friend, and it became this really interesting conversation where I finally just realized I do movie reviews. And the things that I love in movie reviews or book reviews that I watch is when character development and talking about a character's arc and how much you need to know about their experience and who they are and who they love and what's been their hardest part in life and stuff like that. And I said, I have to review this book because I had assumed so much from the songs, like Angry Anymore, where I thought she was just like from this horrible family that she didn't even love, or the song about her sexual assault, all these different things. And in the book, I found that none of the things that I had assumed were accurate at all. Ani was deeply in love with her family, her father, her mother, her brother. Ani was much more happy-go-lucky and less angsty about things. The emancipation minor, the emancipated minor business where you think she had this huge blow up with her family and she just couldn't deal with it. And then you find out that it's really this thing that was kind of like agreed upon by everyone, that it was just such a no-nonsense decision. Like it was the right thing to do for where Ani was at and how she was going about her shows, even at a young age, learning guitar from her mentor, Michael Meldrum. I mean, I didn't know that this emancipation area of her life was so, it was just very level-headed. It wasn't a conflict. It was almost embraced. And her parents knew her independent streak, knew how strong she was in Buffalo and the city, her friends, and her parents are quite eccentric in their own way, and you could see how they were just as comfortable with this, and it just made a lot of sense. The other thing that I need to talk about is about people who don't know Ani Difranco. Should you suggest this book to people who don't know who Ani Difranco is? Is this a story that they will be captivated by? For me, I couldn't put the book down. It's a red alert book. But is this a story that, someone who's never heard of her is going to see on the New York Times bestseller list? Congratulations, Ani. And they're going to pick up, and I think absolutely they're going to love it, because it tells such an interesting story about the 80s and the 90s, and the atmosphere around being signed to major labels, and what the cost really was. Because Ani would have people, as she became more and more popular, who would open for her. Then weeks later, she'd see them on the cover of Rolling Stone or on MTV, and she's like, wait, they were just opening for me at this bowling alley, and now they're above me. And then she would find out the truth, that these record labels were treating their very talented roster of artists horribly, and charging them for things like taking them out to lunch, or if they sent them flowers. I mean, the artist was probably paying for that. And also the label had control of your masters, and if they wanted the sound to go this way, this way. And so Ani also, I mean, she definitely wanted to have her independent streak. She wanted to do it her way, on her own. On Her Own was this wonderful website message board, and I miss it so much. But she became the little folk singer that could, who started her own record label, had the most amazing word of mouth, because Ani Difranco is so much more prolific. She's so much more respected, I think, even more than like someone in her peer group like Alanis Morissette. But she had almost zero airplay, zero video play, for at least for most of this side of the story, which is the No Walls, and her, which we'll get into in a minute, to the Reoccurring Dream that ends around 2001. And it's just incredible what it was like. And another thing that I didn't know, that she was actually considering going with a label, and at the very last minute she just knew it was a conflict with her morality, it was a conflict with who she was as a person, how she felt about capitalism and the label's corporate greed, and it's just something else. So will people who don't know Ani Difranco from whatever love this book? They will love this book. But let's face it, Ani Difranco's having a resurgence. Like, I was watching this show on Netflix with Christina Applegate's, this brand new show, and she said something she said, oh yeah, I married him because he's the only man I knew who liked Ani Difranco. And I remember seeing Ani Difranco references all over the place, and she's touring, she's doing the book tour, she's touring right now. We have this wonderful Facebook page that has just like flourished, the Ani Difranco Facebook page. Please check it out. It's like all the members of OHO. When OHO shut down, onherown.net shut down, none of us had the chance to exchange emails. That we all became really close friends. When you go to shows a lot, you start to become a member of this community, of this fandom, of this like give and take. It's so much different than any other thing. It's not like going to a Fleetwood Mac concert where everyone's like, yeah, we just had the best time. It's like, wow, did you hear those lyrics? How did that make you feel? Did you get the set list? Was the stagehand that was breaking down the drums, did they give you the set list? You have it? Can I take a picture of it? Can I get one myself, So, yeah. The book opens with No Walls and is bookended by The Recurring Dream. So it starts her childhood all the way to 2001. And I think there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that in a minute. But Ani had an incredible father, incredible mother, the immigrants. Her father was Italian, her mother, I think, was a Canadian immigrant. I think. That's another thing that was interesting to learn, was how closely connected Ani is with Montreal and Quebec, and the family house in her greater family, that you literally learn about her working on the roof and making it more habitable, that her mother is at right now. I don't like to say a lot in these reviews, but so anyways, her mother was an architect at a time when there wasn't a lot of female architects in Buffalo, New York, and that starts to become a problem when you start to read in the book about how her mother was treated. Her mother was this otherworldly woman with these wonderful feminist ideals, and you can tell Ani gets a lot of her strength from that song Joyful Girls about her mom. Like I said, it was so nice to just see how loving Ani was towards her mother and her father. But her mother designed the house to have no walls on the first floor, and it was a large home, but they all slept on the first floor. I think the bathroom and everything, and the shower, everything was on the second floor. So Ani grew up with no walls. She and her brother were in a separate section, and the parents, and it was just a very interesting upbringing that she had. Her father was an eccentric. I think her father's cousin worked on atomic warfare. Her brother, this was something that I found out that I didn't, was dealing with a great deal of mental illness that he finally overcame. Towards the end of the book, you hear why. And then just how loving she was to her father, who, when he was at the end stage of his life, all these stories so deeply personal that I just was just like floored by, because that's not the Ani Difranco I know. And then you start to find out about her current family and her children, all this stuff. It's just an interesting read for someone who makes a lot of assumptions on the songs or on her life from a very interesting place, where there is this distance. What I thought was going to be one of the most interesting things for Ani on this book tour would be her having to sign her name on the book, because Ani is not a signature person. I remember a friend of mine had went up to her and asked for an autograph or something when Ani was just like behind one of the venues, and Ani was like, "Oh, you don't like John Hancock, do you?" Da, 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 and it all just went down from there. She doesn't do the meet and greets. So I was like, what is she going to do when she has to like see all these people and sign the books? And they said that she signed the books before the show and they were just handing them out. I was like, oh, Ani, you always know how to get out of every ordeal. But learning about her first marriage, but the thing that's going to grab people who don't know Ani and who can't, I mean, the fans are not going to be able to put this memoir down. It's just like everything you want to know. Give me all the information. What inspired this? Who was Michael Meldrum? Who was Scott? How did Righteous Babe come along? Why did you move away from Buffalo? What was it like, the first year's touring? Talk about your love for your cat. I mean, there's just so much in here. But the activism and the lessons you learn is what will hook people who maybe are just subtle fans to major fans, because there's a lot of information in here about activism, feminism, the ERA, what else? What it's like to be a singular young woman in New York City during a time when all these artists were trying to get signed, like Tori Amos, Suzanne Vega, Michelle Shocked, all these people who Ani runs into in the book. Her relationship with Prince wasn't a friendship that she had with Prince, and how Prince was very inspired by Ani. And in Buffalo, Suzanne Vega, a lot of artists that were getting signed would come through, and Ani's trademark is her way of her good, not just her extremely wonderful lyrics and melody, and her beautiful voice, which no one ever really gives her credit for, but her really percussive way of playing the guitar. That kind of play that, you almost don't even need a band, because it's like a 6-piece band when you play that kind of way on the guitar, or you play that way on the piano. Suzanne Vega, everyone thinks, is the subject of the song Napoleon, which is about someone who gets signed and then regrets it dreadfully. And we all know now from the book that it's not Suzanne Vega, but Ani was very respectful of Suzanne Vega. She loved the way that Suzanne played the guitar and wanted to play the guitar like that. Now, if you ask me, she plays the guitar a lot better than Suzanne Vega by a long stretch, and she's more prolific on the guitar. And what I've noticed, she talks about her early audience, and that's in the book, and that's important, and the word of mouth and the exchanging of the tapes and the phone number that she and her manager got when our RBR started. But if you go to her shows now, her audience has really changed. They're younger. Oh, I'd say it's actually the age is about equal, but there's much more men at her shows, and they come there to see her play the guitar. And when they see her play, this tiny person in real life, a big person in spirit in the book, and larger than life. But when you see her physically, she's just this tiny person who plays this huge guitar that you think is way too heavy for her. And man, she just plays that guitar out, and the dudes just, their jaws hit the floor at the way that this woman is just like rocking the house on an acoustic. When she gets on her tenor guitar, the 4-string guitar, everyone knows what that is. I mean, that's when she starts to play more, kind of like you get more of an electric kind of vibe from that guitar, but it's still totally acoustic. But yes, so I'm not really sure where I've been at in this review, but I talked about the emancipation. I wanted to talk about gratitude, which is when Ani went over to England, and that's when she like bounced into Tori Amos at a gig when Tori was looking to get signed or whatever, and everyone's kind of been talking about that because the two artists are kind of similar, very prolific, masters of their instrument, female, both have suffered sexual assault. When Ani was sexually assaulted, a couple weeks later, she wrote a song about it and was playing it to people who knew the guy that assaulted her. And wow, like that story was just something else. I love how she talks about Bob Dylan. The critique is really on trend with what people say about Bob Dylan, which is fantastic literature, but not a very large chord library. Kind of shady, but yeah, it's what it is. I love how she honors her heroes, Pete Seeger, Prince, Utah Phillips. The stories of all three that are so detailed and intricate in here, as intricate as the way she plays the guitar, is so wonderful. You will get so much from that if you're fans of them. It was kind of weird that she wasn't such a good fan of, or she didn't even mention Joan Baez, when I would think Joan Baez's style of playing, which was the finger style, the very, intricate, difficult kind. But really, I think the reason that might be is that Joan Baez wasn't really a songwriter in the way that Ani was, or the way that Ani respected other songwriters. And maybe that's why. It's not in the book that way, but that's just my assumption. Which my assumption's awful, especially of song meanings. I mean, I thought this new Patty Griffin record, that the song Coins was her talking to her cancer as if her cancer was a person, and she's thinking about like all these ways that she can defeat it with her money or whatever. And it wasn't anything like that. It was a song about being a waitress to really rich people who, it just goes on. It was more of a song about the times. But anyways, what can we say about the wonderful packaging to this book? A book that I couldn't put down, by the way. Red alert status on this book. And I think what you need to know about Ani is that she is involved thoroughly with her album artwork. And like the album Evolve, the Sharpie art that she does in that or in Reprieve, I mean, give that woman a Sharpie and she will make you something that is just unbelievable. But after the oil, massive problem that we had with the oil rig and that was leaking out into the ocean, there was a time, Ani writes about this in the album, Which Side Are You On, where she wanted the look of the album to be very oil slick. And this has that too, because she remembers smelling the oil from her home in New Orleans, and just, it was all, the oil was just really all over the news, and it was taking over the country, and this has that feel to it, and it has that look to it. So it's very Ani, it's very on point that way. Very beautiful. This photograph here is just, I mean, it's going to make someone want to pick it up right away just from the photograph. And I have to tell you that I'm just so impressed with the writing, and she wrote every single word, and the audiobook, I understand, is wonderful. And I just am so happy she put out this memoir. Now, it ends in 2001, and the thing you have to understand is 2001 intrinsically becomes a divider of where you were before 2001 and where you were after. Musically, Ani was putting out records every year, and she was producing them all by herself. She was having issues when she toured with having the people at the venues who wouldn't put her frequency, her guitar amp to the low end, which because she played the bass real heavy to get that all around sound. And I think when she met her fellow, she her husband, the father of her children now, the love of her life. He was a producer, and the production changed very drastically. She became much more collaborative. The albums after 1999 and To the Teeth, when I heard that album, I was like, oh man, she's done with this music business thing. She's over it. And then who would have thought, that after 1999, it would just get better and better, and the albums would just be more produced. And when you would go to an Ani Difranco show, if it was like the Evolve album cycle, she was already playing songs that were going to be on the next album, Nickel Down. She talks about her falling out of love with the albums that have been released, and how she would start writing the songs for the next album that she was much more in tune with. And then how having children really slowed her down, slowed the music making process, the writing process down, and she felt like that was a benefit to the album. And I love how she talks about her family now, and you of course know her stance on the reproductive issues, and how that dichotomy is so interesting. And I wish people who have an issue with that, one way or the other, would read this book so they can understand things very prominently and progressively. And the album that's out right now deals a lot with that subject matter. And I really it's almost a story that is too good to be true, where I think she has a lot of issues with people who wanted to focus on her being, the little folk singer who started a record label that was so successful that eventually, she started signing other artists. If you've been watching the Broadway scene right now in the Tony Awards, Anais Mitchell just won like every award you can win for an album that Righteous Babe put out 10 years ago that Ani was on. I can only imagine how Ani, Todd Sikafus won a Tony for it, and Todd is like Ani's, like, I guess you could say left hand man, right hand man. I don't know. It just depends on the way that you look at the stage from one way or the other. And so that's another reason why Ani is in such a resurgence, because Anais, who was signed to Righteous Babe Records, who is a true Righteous Babe, took so long to get that album to where it is now, to a Broadway Tony Award winning musical. But it's on trend what Anais did with what Ani did with her career, which was she there wasn't a lot of guarantees, but there was a lot of life lessons made, a lot of living that happened. And I'm just so blown away by the beauty of this book, by how well written the book is. And like I was saying, it ends in 2001 because Ani's nowhere finished with what she's doing. There's still so much to come. She's starting to embrace social media, which she said she would never do. And as an activist, I don't know how you cannot embrace social media, but so she's doing that. And I think there will be a second volume, and I hope I am here for that. I want to thank all my friends who introduced me to Ani. I want to thank Laura especially. I want to thank all the friends I've made going to the shows, all the friends I've made online, talking about the shows, talking about Ani, talking about the albums. And I made a smaller video, and I think I'm going to post both, because I had to edit that one on my phone down to almost nothing. I didn't get a lot of nuance in it, but there will be 2 book reviews, so that's really stunning. I'm going to have the one that I severely edited, and I'm going to have the one that I didn't edit at all, that is forever long, and this other one's only 10 minutes. So hopefully you can watch both, because I was in 2 different places when I filmed these. And this is a Red Alert book. This is a must read. This is a book club book. I think that would just be like so cool. People would definitely, I remember, I think it was page 42. What was it about page 42 that, or was it 52? Coffee and french fries, having just been sit down, steam in my face. I told my crew, Amy's place, play. Maybe it was 52. Something happened on one of these pages. Oh, yeah, okay, that's why that was interesting to me. It was just more about the Righteous Babe formulation and when it was able to sustain a staff and all the wonderful stuff about Righteous Babe Records that you also get to learn about in here, which was, Ani's career and why she's maintained for many decades a reliable audience for touring. I just think there's so many artists that have had one hits or two hits or three hits and they're gone, that wish they had her career, that wish they would have came up her way. And that's what this book is about. It's about integrity. It's about not sacrificing your morality. It's about standing up for your belief system, even when you're being offered a deal that is so huge and you're starving. You literally have no food and you're like, no, I can't. It's too much. And that's what this book is about to me. Thank you for watching this. And I hope you do your own book reviews of this book because it needs more book reviews. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, all you righteous babes.